Hey, what's up guys? Tyler here with Secureteam. So before we get started really fast, as you can see, we are slowly transitioning over to the new logo of the channel, the Rebirth logo, the Secureteam 2.0, whatever you want to call it. The OG logo will always be in our hearts and in the thousands of past videos. And I just want to thank all of you guys who support on the merch shop, buying tees, backpacks, what have you, and posting your pics and emailing them in. It's an awesome logo, and it was actually designed by one of the designers who worked for PewDiePie here on YouTube, who has like 100 million subscribers or so. So you'll get used to it, you'll learn to love it, and to be honest, I think it's awesome. So now, to get to today's video, I was talking with people on Twitter, on Discord, about the photo that you're seeing here, and I said, you know, here's an image taken by the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter of something that looks suspect, something that looks strange down in a crater on the planet Mars. And as you guys are seeing here, we have this crater, like many craters we've seen before, with an object that looks a little bit too much out of place. Like a wise man once said, God does not create things in straight lines, or something along those lines. But it looks like, you know, some have said an archaeological dig, this rectangular structure, an alien couch maybe, or an ATM machine, some sort of base that has been since covered up by the Martian dust, but it definitely looks out of place. And so I wanted to give you guys a really good video today showing you and proving to you, moreover, that these artificial, some would say alien structures that are found on planets like Mars or our own moon not only exist, but that NASA, as well as the European Space Agency and others, have for years now, going back as far as the Apollo moon missions, blurred or airbrushed out these structures on the moon. And I'm going to show you a lot of imagery today taken by satellites. I'm going to show you interviews by former NASA employee image techs who are talking about how they were told to blur out these structures, and just a whole bunch of really cool images of these objects. So without further ado, let's get started. And we'll go ahead and start with the idea that NASA, well, it's been proven that NASA and employees within a very compartmentalized place within NASA are blurring objects on our own moon. So let's start there with a couple of images. Now, these can be found on the NASA website. Some of them are still there, and others have mysteriously disappeared over the past years. One of the most infamous photos that you can find was captured by, I believe, the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, which is a satellite that constantly is circling our moon, taking satellite images. And this is known as the alien vehicle / alien base photo, where we have a picture of a crater on the moon, and right at the edge of the crater, we can see an obvious blur mark. Something is there. Part of the object is still sticking out. But you can see where they obviously blurred the object. And I'm going to show you more examples of this. This is not just some random glitch or stitching effect. This is an image here that has not been stitched together. We have an object here that was blurred out. And so many people think that this is actually the correct perspective of this image, but it's actually flipped. So we will go ahead and flip that now. And so now we are getting a better perspective where the satellite is moving toward this crater, and what you're seeing above is the actual horizon line of the moon. So now it makes much more sense, but nevertheless, the object is still there, and you can actually see more of the shadow of the object being cast behind it. And so there have been many people over the years who have tried to analyze this image, play with it in Photoshop, try to figure out and bring out whatever sort of alien machine or base was behind this blurring. And we've had some really great work done. So I'm going to show you some examples here. So here is the first, and again, it's a little blurry, but still, people in Photoshop, they were able to de-blur somewhat the object, where it almost sort of looks like one of these old trains that you can find. That's just what it looks like. Could be a vehicle, could be a base of some sort, but you can see this thing has sharp angles to it, what look like pipes or cylinders on the side, light and shadow. Here we have another image depiction of what the possible object looks like, where someone has sort of outlined what this thing could possibly look like if you were seeing it on the moon in real time. And so, yeah, there's something obviously here, and when you look at the original image, if you look to the very end of it, you can even see what look like multiple little spikes that are protruding out from the side where they just didn't blur the entire image. And you can see the blurring is very specific, whereas in some images they will blur it with just a single perfect square. It looks like they went in and just blurred this object out. The blur goes up and down and around the object, not touching any of the other craters, so it was very intentional. And so before we get to some other further blurred out images on the moon and Mars, let's go ahead and hear from a former NASA employee who, while giving testimony during the 2001 Disclosure Project conference presented by Stephen Greer, the link to this I will put in the video description, they had tons of former NASA employees, pilots, veterans, scientists, you name it, all giving their input to what they experienced and the truth about the alien and UFO phenomenon. But her name is Donna Hare, and as you can see in one of the news articles done about her, there was a code name called Santa Claus that was used for 3 UFOs that were spotted during the lunar landings. And so Mrs. Hare goes into detail about the airbrushing of the alien structures on the moon and much more, so give this a listen.
Thank you, Carl. Good morning, everyone. My name is Donna Hare, and I worked at Philco Ford Aerospace from 1967 to 1981. During that time, I was a design illustrator, draftsman. I did the launch slides and landing slides, and also projection plotting boards, lunar maps for NASA. We were a contractor, but most of the time I worked on site, in Building 8. I had the opportunity to do extra work during downtime, which was between missions, and I walked into a photo lab, which was the NASA lab across the hallway. I had a secret clearance, which is not that high, but I was able to go into restricted areas, which this was. At the time, I was talking to one of the techs in there, and he drew my attention to a photograph, a NASA photograph. It had a dot on it, and I said, "What is that?" Well, he drew my attention to it, and I said, "Is that a dot on the emulsion?" And he said, and he's smiling, and he has his hands crossed, and he said, "Round dots on the emulsion don't leave round shadows on the ground." And this was an aerial photograph of the Earth, I'm assuming the Earth, because it had pine trees on it, and the shadows of the craft, or whatever it was, were in the same angle as the trees. And by its very nature, UFO, and I wanted to clarify that to a gentleman that was talking to me, means unidentified. So I did not know what this was. But I realized at this point that it's very secret, that it was kept secret, because I asked him, "What are you going to do with this piece of information?" And he said, "We always airbrush these out before we sell them to the public." So they're pesky little creatures appearing on this photograph they wanted to get rid of. After that, I decided I would ask questions to other people that work there. And I found that I had to ask them away from the site and not on site. A guard told me that he was asked to burn some photographs and not to look at them. And there was another guard guarding him, who was in green fatigues, watching him burn the photographs. And he said he was too tempted. He looked at one, and it was a picture of a UFO, and he was very descriptive. I can go into that later with anyone. He immediately was hit in the head, and he had a big gash in his forehead. He was knocked out, and he's terrified, so he would have to be protected. Another incident, I knew someone in quarantine with the Apollo astronauts. He told me that the Apollo astronauts saw craft on the moon when we landed, and that is what he told me. And he also was afraid. He said that the astronauts are told to keep this quiet. They're not allowed to talk about it. So I do want to let you know that I worked out there for a number of years, and I ran into this. So it's not something everyone knows that works out there for a long time. My boss didn't know about it. Some people that sat right next to me didn't know about it. It's very strange, because I don't know how they can do it, but they can let some people know about it and then others not. I'm willing to testify before Congress that what I'm saying is true, And thank you very much.
Okay, so there you heard it from the NASA employee themselves. They have been airbrushing these things out for years. And so here are some more images of these very obvious blurs. However, at the time, NASA didn't count on things like Photoshop or websites or the internet where people would be able to go back or see what they had done. They just didn't count on it. And so here we have an object, again, sitting in a crater on the moon, totally blurred out, this time with sort of a skewed rectangle blur object. There's also been many towers that have been seen blurred on the moon. And I've shown videos in the past that have been featured in national news, CNN, Fox News, what have you, for my moon videos, my UFO videos, but especially the towers that are on the moon that have been captured in, imagery from our very first satellites, looking and taking pictures of the moon, where in one image you can even see one of these towers sticking out from the side of the moon, miles high, this tower, because the moon was at just the precise spot in its rotation to where the camera caught the tower that you're seeing here. And we have some other images here where the blurs have been outlined, just to give you an idea of what the shapes of these objects may be. Obviously, one is a tower. We have what looks like a tower hooked to a building, another object with a square blur in front of it, and the more close-up image of one of these towers, where the blur just covers the entire thing straight up in the air and comes to a stop when the artificial structure is no longer visible. And so we've spoken in the past many times about the artificial structures on the moon, like things that look like satellite dishes. And, those were featured as well. What you're seeing here are two separate objects known as the satellite dishes. One looks like one of the dishes you would see on Earth, where it has a metal frame underneath. It is being raised up off the ground. We have the antenna, the object in the middle, the receiver of the satellite, and then in the other image we have what looks like another sort of ground satellite or some sort of smokestack of some sort, some have said. And I even posted a video, and I'll have to find that video for you guys, where a viewer sent in either some images or a video of a UFO that they had captured that looked eerily similar to this sort of smokestack saucer-like UFO that was seen on the moon. And again, the images can be found on the NASA website. And so you're seeing that image here taken from the national news website that actually featured that video. So what do you think? Same saucer-like object, same sort of circular smokestack cylinder on top of it with an opening. Looks very similar to what was parked on the moon. The image that was captured, I believe, during one of the Apollo missions, when one of the astronauts was snapping photographs out of the window of the orbiter. So they've been blurring these things for years. Sometimes it's almost like they forgot to blur them, or they felt that the images or the object within the image was so vague enough to the point where they didn't need to blur it. But that's what I love about these vintage images. And so, yeah, you're seeing images here of various what look like bases, structures with rectangular, square, cylinder-like, circular-like features that just look like they don't belong. And so here are some UFO clips that were put together by an old friend of mine named Luna Cognita, who was one of the first people who really inspired me and got me into looking into UFO anomalies, especially on the moon. And so go ahead and check this out of some video footage as well as imagery from the Apollo images where we landed on the moon, and tell me what you think. And so there you have it, guys. Just some different pieces of footage and imagery of the experiences that the astronauts encountered on their trips to the moon. These things were out there, they were watching, they followed them to and from the moon. So if you want to watch more, go to my channel, search for the term moon, artificial, Mars. I've done a ton of videos on the subject. And like I said, and like YouTube support told me, only 10% of you have the notification bell clicked. That's why my video views have gone down, because only 10% of you are getting my views. And I understand that many of you don't like hearing a bell ring on your phone when you're trying to work, but you can still click the bell, select all notifications, and then set the notification on your phone to silent, so you'll still get it, but you won't hear an annoying bell. It would really help me out, and we could get the truth out to more people, and let more people know I'm back. So again, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Follow me on Instagram. We just surpassed 11,000 followers. I post videos there all day long. Cool stuff. Check out secureteamtees.com. Use promo code UFBROS123 for 10% off everything. And as always, for the best and the real truth in the alien and UFO sighting phenomenon, stick right here with Secure Team, and I'll see you guys back in just a bit.